Well, let's get more details on what these election results mean for the Philippines and its economy with Eduardo Araral, an associate professor at the National University of Singapore's Public Policy School. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rachelle.
So to what degree do you think these midterm elections will be a referendum on Duterte's overall accomplishments?
Well, Rachelle, all midterm elections are a referendum of the sitting president. And I think by all indication, given the president's net popularity of 70%, and given the fact that almost all of the 12 senatorial candidates are supportive of President Duterte, says that most of the Filipinos actually approve of the first half of Duterte's term. So this is a favorable result for Duterte overall.
And you mentioned the president's approval rating, and this is despite a slowing economy. So why do you think he still has so much support despite what's happening with the economy?
Well, the slowing economy in the first quarter is not really systemic or it will last long. The slowing economy was just the result of a delayed passage of the budget. And most likely that a slowdown in the economy will bounce back year on year as a result of the election spending, as a result of foreign investments, as a result of infrastructure spending. So that is not a serious slowdown. And second is that Duterte has kept most of his promises, populist promises, to deliver free education for college students, free health care for poor people, free irrigation. And Duterte still speaks the layman's language. What you see is what you get. Despite all his rhetoric, his language, in spite of what happened to the economy, in spite of the inflation, people can still relate to him because the alternative is not palatable to many Filipinos. This is a fight between an ordinary person like Duterte, who comes from the province, and the Manila elite, who continues to bash him. So I think Duterte is quite comfortable with that.
And as you mentioned, Duterte's political persona really is being that man of the people. How has he performed in terms of lifting people out of poverty? I know that was also important for him.
Yeah, that won't be easy in a 6-year term. But I think at the rate that jobs are created for infrastructure projects, at the rate the economy is growing, and at the rate that the tax revenues of the government have been increasing, that means the government has more money to spend for education, for healthcare, for job creation, so on and so forth. So the 6-year term of President Duterte may not see a significant drop in poverty rates, but it will lay down the foundation for continuous growth of the economy, which would be very good in terms of reducing poverty in the long run. As long as his administration will keep steady on their promise to build more infrastructure, create more jobs, and do a lot more redistribution for poor people, and train young people to get relevant skills, I think that would be a good enough legacy for his term.
And we know that Duterte has unveiled a series of reforms, including that corporate tax cut. From what we're seeing, if he does have enough support in Congress to push through with all the reforms that he wants, how do you see that shaping the economy?
Well, the second package of tax reform is the most difficult one because that will see the lowering of tax rates for corporations, but at the same time, removing a lot of tax incentives for companies or industries like business process outsourcing, which employs about 1 million Filipinos. And there's a lot of pushback for that. But the net effect of the tax reform is that it will increase the fiscal space of the government, and it should encourage more investors to come in. But tax reform is not enough. He has to liberalize and open up the economy to foreign investors because the Constitution limits foreign investors to only about 40% in many parts of the economy. So tax reform plus revising that parts of the Constitution plus improving the infrastructure plus lowering the cost of electricity are all the necessary ingredients for the continued growth of the economy.
And just quickly, we have about 30 seconds. We know that Duterte is trying to shift the government system from a unitary scheme to a federal one. What are the benefits of doing this?
Well, two-thirds of the growth of the country is concentrated in Metro Manila and the two other regions. And the main goal of that is simply to redistribute the benefits of growth. If the economy has been growing 6.5%, but that's because the growth is concentrated in these three regions. So the benefit of shifting this to federal form of government is to redistribute the growth to other regions so that people will not be flocking to Metro Manila.
All right, thank you so much for your insights. Eduardo Araral of the National University of Singapore's Public Policy School.